Welcome back to the Kingdom Inspired Kids podcast, where parents talk, where we support families raising children and teens with ADHD and ADD with faith, compassion, and real world tools that they can use basically every day. I'm your host, Calvette Boyd, and today we're talking about something that's trending in both education and in mental health conversations right now. And guess what that is? How teens with ADHD can successfully plan for the future, especially when it comes to things like college, careers, and gaining their own independence. Teens with ADHD are bright, capable, creative, and full of potential. But planning ahead, sometimes managing time, organizing their tasks, and staying motivated can be overwhelming. So today, I'm breaking down practical step by step strategies to help all of these teens build the skills they need to thrive in high school, college, and beyond. So grab a notebook, share this episode with another parent or educator, and let's dive in. Gonna give you just a minute to grab your notebook. So the middle of today's conversation is I am going to walk you through 4 major pillars of future readiness for your teens with ADHD. The first one is going to be executive function skills. Number 2 is going to be academic and college readiness. 3 is self-advocacy and support systems. 4 is going to be life skills and emotional readiness. And I'm going to break each one of these down so that I can kind of give you some examples, some talking points, some strategies that you can take action on so that you can start using these things right away. So pillar number 1 is building executive function skills. Executive function is the brain's management system. The skills that help us plan, organize, prioritize, and follow through. For many teens with ADHD, this is one of the biggest challenges that they have. It's the biggest predictor of college success and how they navigate through. So here's what teens need to practice before graduation. And this is something that I am working on with my team. Time readiness, or I should say time awareness versus time guessing. So teens with ADHD often underestimate how long it takes to do a task. I know we worked on some things before, and sometimes my daughter has kind of said, hey, I've got a project that's due, and it's due 3 months from now, and she would be ready to work on the project. That's great. But as a procrastinator, I wasn't always that parent. I haven't always been that parent. So let's talk a little bit about it. So teens with ADHD, as I said, they often underestimate how long it takes to do a task. So as their parent, we need to teach them how to estimate time, how to do the task, how to check the real time, and then compare and adjust. We need to teach them and encourage them how to use external tools instead of like their memory to say, oh, I got 15 minutes, I got 10 minutes. It should take about, 30 minutes, because sometimes they don't function like that. So the tools that you can give them to help them to, instead of trying to use memory to see how long 15 minutes is or an hour is or 2 days is, we can encourage them to use digital calendars, visual planners, reminders with alarms, like that's one of my biggest things, color-coded folders, and assignment trackers. Because in college, they don't say work on your essay every day. What they say is you got an essay due in 3 days or 3 weeks or whatever it is. You see it in your syllabus. And if your kid has not been prepared for this, then they don't know how to break these tasks into steps. So the ADHD brain needs steps like choose a topic. Okay, we got that done. Make an outline. That's done. Kind of like a checklist. Write an intro. Okay, check, we got that done. Draft the body paragraphs. Check, we've got that done. Edit and submit. Check. We submitted our work. So practice independent work blocks now. So start with things like 15 to 20-minute focus blocks, short breaks, and then repeat cycles. So go ahead and like start your kid to train their brain and to train them how to do these things before college hits, and then college hits and college demands that they know how to do these things. Of course, some of our kids will have accommodations, and that's all well and done, but at the same time they still have to do their work and they have a deadline that they need to meet. Okay, let's move on to pillar number 2, academic and college readiness. College success isn't about intelligence, it's about a system and a structure. So here's some key areas to help your kid develop. Study skills that work with ADHD. Okay, make sure you're taking notes. Study skills that work with ADHD. Short, sturdy burst versus cramming. Oh my God, when I was in college, I was a crammer. Not good, not good, not good at all. So study, we want them to have short study burst versus cramming. So let's study 15, 20 minutes instead of waiting to the last minute to cram it all in, and your brain is trying to figure out what it wants to keep and what it doesn't want to keep. Something else that works with ADHD is studying out loud. Maybe they're in their own room, or maybe they're at home for college and they're in their own room and they have time where they can study out loud and like practice their speech or read their essay out loud, things like that. That really helps. And it also helps them to develop. They can record themselves on YouTube or record themselves on their cell phone, and they can go back and see how this sounds to them, right? And as a parent, you can help them to critique it. They can use flashcards or visuals. Things like that really help. It keeps them grounded. It keeps them centered and focused. And then movement-based learning, like walk and read your notes in your room. So you're walking back and forth and you're reading. Those things really help when it comes to study skills for the ADHD brain. The next thing that your teen can try right now are things like note-taking strategies. I don't even see my kid since COVID. I can be honest, my kid has not, neither one of my children came home with a lot of notes or even homework. So they need to really start thinking about that, because these are things they're going to have to do. They're going to have to take these notes. So as they're doing their work in college. So teens should try Cornell notes, digital notes with headings, and voice notes after class recordings. Choosing the right college environment is something else that you want to consider. The class size, the academic support center, the disability services, the campus culture, and the level of structure that the college has versus the independence. Okay? And then accommodations do carry into college, but your student must self-request the support, because as a parent, you can't do it for them anymore, because these children are going to be 18 and they're going to be considered adults to the real world. So they have to learn how to advocate for themselves. You can be there and be around them and support them and navigate them through, but they have to learn how to be an advocate for themselves, right? Because they're adults now. You can help your team practice things like emailing teachers respectfully. You know, there's so many different resources out now. You can Google it, you can ask Siri, you can use ChatGPT, things like that, so that they know how to respectfully email. Now, one thing I can say about one of my children, she loves an email. She will send you an email. So she loves it. But the part of it that we need to work on is not the disrespectful, because the email's not disrespectful when she emails, but just knowing how to be professional when you send that email. So make sure that you're practicing with your team. They can email you like they're emailing their teacher. Maybe they don't understand an assignment, things like that, so that you can help them understand. And then when they're out on their own, if they're afraid or they're skeptical when it comes to doing it, they can always Like I said, ask Siri, Chat GPT, Google it, things like that. We also, as parents, need to help our teens practice on asking for clarification. If there's something that they don't understand, we want them to be comfortable enough to go to their professors, go to their teachers, and ask them to clarify what they're expecting from them, or clarify this assignment for me. The next thing that you can help your team practice on right now is explaining learning needs. That is super huge. If there is a class, or if there's a certain way that your child learns, your children learn, then you want to make sure that they know how to explain that and advocate for themselves. This becomes confidence for them. These things, learning how to email respectfully, asking for clarification, explaining learning needs. This becomes so confident. It gives them so much confidence. So it helps them to gain that confidence and be independent and not be so dependent. All right, let's move on to pillar number 3. Pillar number 3 is self-advocacy and support networks. So teens with ADHD thrive when they know how to ask for help early on. We don't want them to wait until they're halfway through the class and they're failing the class, or they got a D or a really low C in these classes. So key messages to practice with your students or your children. I work best when clear directions and reminders are there for me. They can also say things like, I need instructions broken into steps. That is how I learn. Or I benefit from extra time for my exams. Could you help me clarify some expectations? So make sure that they understand some of the messages that they want to practice, and make sure that they're comfortable saying it to a stranger, because in the beginning, these teachers and professors are going to be strangers to them. The next thing is support networks should include things like a trusted teacher or counselor, an academic advisor that really understands, maybe what kind of plan 504 or whatever kind of plan they had when they were in high school, it carries over. So you want to make sure that they know how to communicate that, and you can go with them to communicate with their academic advisor. You also want to make sure that the support network includes the disability services office, because that is going to be huge for them as well, and kind of help them to stay grounded with what they need. And then peer mentor or study buddy. They will begin to meet new people. They can pick up on who's really there to have a good time, or who's there to get their work done, who has a purpose and a plan, and that's what they're moving in. So you want to make sure that you talk to your children, you teach them, how to pray and ask for discernment, so that they know who they should and who they should not be hanging around with. And so make sure that they get a really good peer mentor or a study buddy that can encourage them, and they can motivate each other along the way. Also, a supportive adult at home. So whether that means an older sibling, a younger sibling that looks up to them, it could be you, it could be their grandparents, because college is not meant to be done alone. And I think that's where we as a culture have missed it. Our kids turn 18, we send them off to college, we expect for them to be an adult. Remember, the frontal lobe of their brain has not fully closed. That is the part of the brain that helps them to make decisions, good quality decisions. And parents, just because you raise them right does not mean when they get out in the real world, when they get out to college, that they're going to do exactly what you said, because they're gaining their independence and they have to learn how to do things and navigate through life. And it's not meant to be done alone. You don't let them just go to college and throw them out there. There has to be a support system. Support is not weakness. It's a strategy to make sure that we are not setting our children up to fail. All right, moving on to pillar number 4, life and emotional readiness. Academics are only part of success. Our teens need to understand sleep routines. You got to go to sleep. Your body needs rest. They need to understand their medication responsibility. So I can say that my daughter is older and I still give her medicine. And at this point, she's old enough to take her medicine. It's just something that I've done that I've got to stop doing. But you need to make sure that they understand their medication responsibility, basic self care for themselves, and hygiene routines. I was even thinking earlier this morning, I was like, man, when you go off to college, like, if you get sick and you start feeling bad, it's not like you can be like, Mama, I don't feel good. I got a headache. I'm nauseous. I'm overstimulated. Like, they can, but you're not there with them if they're off at college. So they need to know how to do things like go to the college campus, the nurse, the doctor, and they need to know how to make sure that they're going to their dentist appointments to still get their teeth cleaned, and those kind of things. They need, if they've had braces, they need to understand if they are not wearing that retainer when they're supposed to be wearing it at night when they're sleeping, that their teeth will shift. All of those basic self-care things and hygiene routines. Take a bath. You know, I can tell you that a lot of people that have disabilities, I've seen that it is sometimes a challenge when it comes to basic self-care and hygiene routines. So they need to understand those things. They need to make sure that they are careful when it comes to screen time. When they're in your house, you can tell them, but when they're off at college, like, they've got to know how to manage this themselves. Stress management tools. It is going to be stressful. Life can be stressful sometimes. So they've got to know how to navigate through these things. Decision making and problem solving practice. Okay. So, for example, let me give an example. If I don't cook today, then how does my kid eat? Does my children know how to go and fix them some noodles, or go and fix them a sandwich, or cook a meal? Do they know how to do the basic things? You know, this is something I've been really thinking about, because when your child goes off to college, if they're on a meal plan, they get their however many meals a day. But then what happens if they give them vouchers to go to like Chick-fil-A or Jersey Mike's or McDonald's or whatever on campus, and they use all their vouchers and they don't have any food? What's next? Do they know how to problem solve? If I don't cook today, do they know how to, do my children know how to problem solve? Do they know how to make a decision on what to do? Because remember, a lot of our children are really, really dependent on us. And so we've got to help them grow into some independence. And emotionally, teens with ADHD may compare themselves to others, feel behind, struggle with motivation cycles, experience rejection. But listen, parents, this is how you help. You focus on their strengths. You celebrate every effort, not being perfect, because nobody's perfect. You reinforce curiosity, creativity, and resilience. Hey, you didn't do it this time, you got it next time. Or you did a really good job with this, but we want to work on this next time. The goal is not to create a perfect student, okay? Because we are not perfect people. Only Jesus was perfect. The goal is to raise capable, confident, growing young adult children, to help them to grow and to be a mature adult. Okay. So whether your teen is headed to college, trade school, whether they're an entrepreneur, they're headed to the workforce, or they're still trying to figure out what they want to do in life, remember, future success isn't built overnight. It's built through daily skill building, support, practice, and patience. And teens with ADHD, they don't lack potential. These are some of the smartest people you will ever meet. They simply need the right systems, the right tools, and champions like us as parents on their side. Thank you for tuning in to Kingdom Inspired Kids podcast, where parents talk. If today's episode encouraged you, blessed you, if it's something that you want to share with another parent, an educator, or a teen who could benefit, please do so. Please do so for me. This show is powered by CTR Media Network, connecting purpose-driven voices, positive storytelling, and meaningful conversations that inspire change in our families and in our communities. Be sure to follow, subscribe, stay connected, and remember, you are a great parent. Your child is capable. Your teen is growing. And together we're thriving with purpose. Until next time, I want you guys to make sure that you stay encouraged, stay inspired, and keep building a strong future for your kids. And I hope to see you guys really, really soon. Now, remember, you can find me on all social media platforms at 7 a.m. Central Time. And I hope to see you guys on Wednesday. On Wednesdays at 7 a.m. Central Time. And I hope to see you guys soon.